Steve Helwagen for BuckNuts.com is with us here on Ruscin and Zach to break this all down for us. Hey, Steve, thanks for taking time today.
Yeah, great to be here.
So what changed with the Big Ten? Was it seeing other games happening? I mean, what the technology, like what brought this really kind of title shift with the Big Ten?
Yeah, I think what happened was, okay, take Ohio State, for example, 130 years of tradition of playing football every year, and you take that away. I don't think Kevin Warren, the commissioner of the Big Ten, or the presidents were prepared for the backlash that they got. And then you had Justin Fields did a petition to try and bring back the season. The parents did a couple of rallies, one in Chicago, one in Columbus. The Michigan people did a rally in Ann Arbor. Nebraska players sued the Big Ten, and that led to some airing of some dirty laundry, I think, that the conference didn't want out there. And then you had people, Clay Travis for one, and different people on Twitter and in media that just kept beating the drum that, why can't the Big Ten play? In Ohio, you've got high school football going into week 4 now. The Bengals and Browns, the NFL, are playing, and they're playing in a game tonight against one another with fans in the stands. Notre Dame last week played a game against Duke with 20,000 people in the stands at Notre Dame Stadium in South Bend, Indiana, which is right in the heart of the Big Ten footprint. So West Virginia's playing, Louisville's playing, Cincinnati is playing a game this coming week, and yet here you had Ohio State, kind of like the 6-year-old going to its mom and saying, why can't I go outside and play with the other kids? And the only answer is, because I told you so. There was no real good answer or explanation why they couldn't. So they got some things clarified with fast result testing. I heard one of the doctors on the radio today saying on game day they can get a result in 15 minutes, which will tell you theoretically you're putting 2 clean teams on the field and no chance for spread during a live game. So that's good. And, they're going to make a go of it. So we've seen games canceled. I mean, Houston was supposed to play Memphis, and that got canceled, and Virginia Tech haven't been able to play their game, and so I think there'll be some cancellations or pushbacks along the way, but Big Ten is going to try and make a go of it starting October 24th.
When they finally got their story straight and released the vote, it was pretty decisive. All the presidents said, no, we're not going to play. Are they unanimous in the idea that now we're going to go forward? Is this still something that's somewhat undecided? They're going to do it, but not everybody's happy.
Well, I think they took a holistic approach to this, and they had the medical aspect of it, the football aspect of it, and even the TV aspect of it, because that's all you're playing for now is the television revenue, since there are no fans in the stands. And each of these schools realized about $55 million in television revenue last year. Ohio State, for one, is going to be out about $60 or $70 million in gate receipts and luxury suites and parking and the live dollars that come in from hosting the games. But so all that was factored in. I don't want to say money was a driving force, but I think it was something that was discussed. Is this worth the trouble? Is this worth the risk that we're taking to do this? And I think the medical was what drove it at the end of the day, that kind of brought the no's over to the yeses, that they're going to be testing 120 players and up to 50 staff members 6 times a week throughout the season at each of these Big Ten schools. And again, if somebody does come down with a positive test, they're going to be exiled from the group for 3 weeks. And if they hit certain benchmarks, a percentage of the total community of 170 people or whatever it is, I don't have the exact percentage in front of me, then they may stop practicing, they may stop playing. So they've got safeguards in place. Sounds like they have done everything they could to make it as clean a playing field as they possibly could, and going to go out and try and see what happens. That's all you can do.
We're talking with Steve Helwagen from BuckNuts.com here on Ruscin and Zach about this Big Ten football situation. So as much as the most loyal Big Ten fan would admit, it seems to me like the SEC kind of got this right. They waited. The SEC hasn't even started the season yet, and it'll start next week. But the SEC waited until the end of September. Couldn't the Big Ten have done that all along and avoided a month's worth of PR disaster?
Yeah, that would have been nice had they taken that approach, and now they've kind of backed themselves into a hole here because their teams are going to play 8 games in 8 weeks, at least that's what they're scheduled, and then they're doing something unique on the championship Saturday, December the 19th. The top team in each division will play in the championship game, theoretically in Indianapolis as always, but then the second team in each division will play each other, and so forth down to the 7th team, so everybody will get a 9th game out of this, and nobody knows what the bowl picture will be after that, but certainly there's going to be a playoff, it would seem, all things considered equal. So the winner of that championship game, I would think, if barring the fact they're a 3-loss team, will probably be in that playoff, and that's what they're going to push for. I know Ohio State's going for a 4th straight Big Ten championship and a return trip to the playoff. They were installed number 2 in the coaches poll and the AP poll before all the cancellations and everything. So the hope is that if they can run the table and win the Big Ten, that they'll be right there in that Final Four field with whoever comes out of the ACC, the SEC, and probably the Big 12. And it's kind of cut and dry. You take the 4 champions of those Power 5 conferences that are playing, although it is possible one of them could be a 2 or 3 loss team and get supplanted by maybe a 1-loss non-champion from another conference. But yeah, they did back themselves into a hole, and if for some reason a week comes and you can't play, there's nowhere to make that up.
Right.
So I'm not sure what the rationale or the thought's going to be. They could have started October 17th and built in an extra week, but for whatever reason, they're going October 24th.
They're 5 weeks away from the start of this. Are they going to re-release the schedule, amend the schedule that they released back in August? How does the scheduling and all of this work?
Yeah, it's complicated. The original schedule had them playing 9 Big Ten games. Then the one that was released early August had them playing 10 Big Ten games, and now they're only going to play 8. So the prevailing thought is they're going to go back to the first one that had 9 games, and you would just eliminate one of your crossover opponents. In this case, Ohio State was supposed to play at Illinois and at home against Nebraska and Iowa, so you'd probably keep the road game and get rid of one of the 2 home games, Nebraska or Iowa, to get it down to an 8-game season. For them, the toughest part for them is they have to go on the road and play Penn State, who was projected as a top 10 team, so that may be their biggest obstacle to winning the Eastern Division. They play Michigan at home this year, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out, but there are some challenges on the schedule there for them as they get into it.
So it's there's no flexibility, as you mentioned here, with all of this. And I'm also wondering too about, because it seemed like momentum really picked up after Ryan Day put his statement out late last week about how unclear everything has been with communication from the Big Ten. What's the confidence level in the commissioner, Kevin Warren, right now? Because this is obviously an unprecedented crisis, and it looks to us from the outside that he has handled it remarkably poorly.
Yeah, well, again, who would want to be in his shoes? I mean, Jim Delaney, was a power broker and did that job for 30 years, but in those 30 years, he never faced anything like this crisis that we've seen. I mean,
Sure.
you could liken this to World War II or Vietnam or, 9/11. I mean, this is one of the worst things that hit our society, in the last 200 years. So the way it's kind of impacted things. So, yeah, he's been put in a tough spot. Could it have been handled better with more transparency and more communication? Possibly. He has readily admitted he didn't expect the backlash. I think one thing that may have turned things was maybe 10 days ago, President Trump picked up the phone and called him and said, look, what can we as the government do to help you, get you some fast reacting tests or whatever we can do to help help you. And I don't think they want to admit that the tail wagged the dog and that he had a big hand in getting football back in the Big Ten. But that was another turning point, I think, as you kind of laid out there. I mean, again, there have been a lot of things that have happened since they canceled the season August the 11th, and now here we sit 36 days later, and they're playing football for some reason. So, I think a lot of things happen, and again, I think the opportunity to have those fast return tests is probably the biggest among them.
I want to ask you a little bit about Nebraska, because they've kind of been the thorn in the side of the Big Ten office for a while. I mean, they have the press conference with the hot mic and all that happens, and then a Big Ten guy, Desmond Howard, goes on national television and says, well, Nebraska owes the Big Ten an apology. What do you make of Desmond's comments?
I have no idea what he's thinking, and I could probably get myself in trouble thinking and saying a lot of the things I think about this. I'll just say this, that they showed the passion, and that people, in this region, football means everything, just as it does down there in your region as well. And when it's taken away, that's like there's no Christmas, So that was understandable that the people in Nebraska reacted the way that they did. The people at Ohio State reacted that way. And I think they were kindred spirits in this whole thing. I don't know where he gets off making a comment like that. I really don't. I don't know if he has kids, if something of their passion was ever taken away, how would he feel? I just don't understand. And he and Lee Corso the first week, say, I don't think they should play, and then we've had all these other national people who have come out against it, Dan Wolken from USA Today, and et cetera, and yet all these people then in the very next segment, the very next story, are covering the SEC with glee, talking about how could LSU repeat, who's going to come up in the East, and all this other stuff. Either you're for football being played or you're not. And none of these people had consistency in message at all. So I don't give what he said. I let what he says go in one ear and out the other, because most of it's nonsense.
I think we both agree with you on that.
Absolutely.
We're talking with Steve Helwagen from BuckNuts.com. Just to kind of channel in on football here for a minute, Steve, just kind of give us a snapshot of Ohio State. I think we all know, but we may have forgotten some of the specifics on this is a loaded team that, as you mentioned, could very well be in the middle of the playoff hunt whenever that takes place.
Yeah, they put up huge numbers on offense last year. They lost the 2,000-yard rusher, J.K. Dobbins, who already had 2 touchdowns in his debut game for the Ravens this past week. But they've got Trey Sermon transferred in from Oklahoma, and Master Teague, who was Dobbins' backup last year. Those will be the guys running the ball. Justin Fields back. He was the top vote getter, returning for the Heisman Trophy, finished 3rd in that balloting last year. Just had an amazing season, only threw 3 interceptions all year. Just so happened 2 of them were in the playoff loss to Clemson, and one of them obviously came on the last play that they had when they were trying to go in for the touchdown to win the game, or whatever, what I guess maybe would have been to tie the game. So, yeah, it was a crazy season for him, and I think they're going to put up big numbers again. They got Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson back at wide receiver, and then they recruited really well. They got 4 national top 100 wide receivers in that class last year. Jackson Smith-Njigba, Julian Fleming, both national top 20 players that'll be filling in at wide receiver. Defense got some holes there. You lose Chase Young, who was the All-American at defensive end, 2nd overall pick. You got Zach Harrison, who was kind of an emerging player there. Some veterans at linebacker, but that's never been the strong suit of this defense. And you're hoping that Shaun Wade, who returned to Ohio State originally, but then opted out over the weekend, hope that he'll come back, and that's up in the air right now. It looks like the All-American offensive lineman Wyatt Davis will go back on his decision to opt out and go to the NFL, and will do everything he can to get back on the team at Ohio State for this season. So get Wade back, and your defense has a chance to be special, because he could be a lockdown corner. And so, again, like every year with Urban Meyer, they send 5, 6, 7 guys to the NFL, and you need 5, 6, 7 unheralded guys to come in there and step up.
All right, Steve Helwagen, BuckNuts.com, part of 247 Sports, our guest here on Ruscin and Zach, to give us kind of the landscape of what's going on with the Big Ten. Thank you, Steve, as always. We appreciate it.
Yep, guys, anytime. We'll talk to you later.
Steve and all our guests here on Ruscin and Zach are on the hotline.
Yeah.
Getting it done. We take you where the news is here on Ruscin and Zach.
Sometimes we don't.